Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Lionshare Bookkeeping believes the key to generating wealth is understanding where it comes from and where it needs to go. They provide bookkeeping and financial coaching exclusively to real estate investors, focusing on cash flow, strategy, and action. Go to lionsharebookkeeping.com/apartments to connect with them now. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Daniel Farber. Thanks for being on the show, Daniel.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here today.
Yeah, honored to have you on the show. Daniel is CEO of HLC Equity, where he is responsible for leading the executive management teams on strategy and execution of growth for HLC's equity investment portfolio and leading the group's operating businesses and brands. HLC Equity is a multi-generational real estate investment firm that has acquired, managed, developed, and repositioned real estate in over 25 states throughout the U.S., having owned and managed over 7 million gross square feet of commercial, residential, and development land. Daniel, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have someone who's very experienced in this space, on the show and hear your just your outlook too, in the market right now, different things I know we're going to talk about, but especially just multi-generational investing. I'm looking forward to talking about that. But why don't you give the listeners a little more about that, about your multi-generational, business, and let's dive in a little bit.
Sure, 100%, with pleasure. So, HLC Equity, as you mentioned, it's a multi-generational real estate investment company. We used to, it's been around for over 70 years. So obviously there's been several different iterations, different asset classes, starting with land development deals in places like the outskirts of Scottsdale, Arizona, eventually going into, this is previous generations, going into neighborhood shopping centers. And over the last kind of like 20 years, there was a heavy focus on some neighborhood shopping centers, but a lot of retail kind of like net lease assets. For those who don't know, what that means, it's primarily the idea being that we have a credit worthy tenant who gets us on we get them on a long-term lease. They pay, it's great cash flow, it's steady. But as the retail market started shifting and seeing all kinds of different dynamics in the market, we really kind of transition our portfolio away from actively purchasing new retail properties for the most part and towards multifamily and really building out our multifamily both on an operational and an ownership standpoint. So that's really kind of what brought us to today. We started looking at specific markets. So while we do maintain our kind of a legacy portfolio in retail, our main focus right now is acquiring multifamily deals in locations like Dallas, Denver. There's some new markets that we're looking at, just given dynamics that are in the market right now. Pittsburgh, we used to do a lot of deals in Brooklyn, but that became, a challenging market to work in. So we're really kind of like in different locations and just very excited about the multifamily market in general.
Well, no, that's great. And I was going to ask you, obviously, what's changed or shifted over time. It's neat, when somebody's business has been around that long, been investing that long. Is there anything else that you would share with the listener that's, that they need to know, right? Like over this period of time, we've learned these things and like, this is a big thing and this is how we've shifted or because of this.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, yeah, it's interesting because my grandfather, who really was a driving force in our company, I remember him telling me a long time ago, real estate is a 10% business, so it's like we want 10% on whatever we're doing, and that makes sense in the business. But that was going back when interest rates were in a totally different place. The market was in a totally different place. The market wasn't nearly as kind of like flooded, so many people having deal flow and access and so forth. So a lot of dynamics have changed, and we can go back and forth of, whether it's for the better or the worse. But there's just been some fundamental shifts in the market. So from the retail side, that's obviously changed in a big way. But, it's changing daily, right? So, if you just take it on a year by year. So in 2016, we were buying in Denver. So you'll appreciate this given your activity in Colorado. We were buying a multifamily deal for a 6 cap. And people thought, you're crazy, a 6 cap like for a multifamily, and that's in 2016, right? And so now, and it was in a great location, and there was a lot of reasons why we did it. And thankfully, we actually exited that deal, and we did really well for ourselves and our investors. But the point is like, who knows? I mean, our overall outlook is that, we don't know what the future is going to hold. We protect our downside. But we, and just hopefully we buy well over the long term. So we're not into looking at these kind of 2 to 3 year deals. That we have had 2 to 3 year deals pan out really well, but we just know that that's a function of kind of the market and where things have come out. And over the last 10 years, the market has just all in all done really great. So people have done really well, not because anybody's smarter than the other, but just because they, just kind of held on. But the way we look at it is right now we're going into deals and we are purchasing assets at what we think is a conservative price to go in over the long term, because you have to have a long-term outlook right now, just given where interest rates are in the economy.
No, that's incredible. You knew I was going to ask about your outlook, right?
Right.
And you already told us.
I jumped right in. I get excited. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like protecting for the downside, right? And we talk about that a lot on the show. I always ask, how do you prepare for a downturn? And I love hearing what different operators, especially as experienced as you are, how you answer that question. I get asked that from investors often, right? But how do you all prepare for a downturn or protect against that downside?
Right. So, I mean, a major factor is like the idea that debt can be as addictive as drugs, right? So to the extent that in a market where you can just get, money and it seems free, so it's very challenging to make sure that you properly capitalize your deals in a way that, when the market does go down, which eventually it always goes down, that you're well protected and that you're in an asset class, like multifamily, that is relatively resilient. I don't like it when everybody says, it's the best asset class and that somebody always needs to live somewhere, because while it's true, I just kind of cringe at that, because I'm always thinking, okay, like something, if it's not a pandemic, can be something else that's going to come at you from somewhere. So never be so confident in what you're investing in, but at the same time, you just got to prepare, and we can just do it the best as we can. So I think the ways you do that is capitalizing your deals well, buying them well, and then having a long-term outlook. Not saying, oh, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to flip it in a year because I know exactly where the market is going to be, because nobody does, right? It could happen, and it has happened to lots of us, but it doesn't mean that it's what the future is going to hold.
Could you shed any light on the capitalizing well? Is there a way that you think about that when you're, acquiring a new project?
Sure. So, obviously right now there's a lot of bridge debt being used, and that's how one way that people are bridge debt, meaning like a variable rate that's bridging between, what you buy it at and what you can eventually put fixed debt on. I think that, while we do look at potentially doing that in some scenarios where we feel like we have enough room, I think that you're just adding on risk, and I think you just need to kind of recognize that risk. So we in most scenarios are not interested in doing a lot of bridge rate debt. We're interested more in kind of like fixing in long-term cheap financing right now. So that at least your debt is at a healthy place. And then there's all the other tests around it, right? Like your debt service coverage ratio, what your exact leverage point is, and then how much occupancy, if there is, your doomsday scenario, which we plan for, how much, vacancy can you actually afford at your property?
Some great things to think through. And I know you have this thing called like layers, right? Layers program. Right. I wanted us to have a few minutes to talk about that. And what you all have created there. I think that would be helpful for some of the listeners.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah. So as we started buying these properties, these kind of, garden style 100 to 300 unit properties, multifamily properties in Dallas, we started managing the properties. And, I come from a little bit of a technology, strategic consulting and technology background. And so we were always kind of, thinking, what can we do better? And there's so much tech in the world, and how can we implement something and operate it better and get higher, maybe get higher returns, increase our revenue. And also, the idea that community is so important today in this day of isolation. And I'm talking pre-pandemic, right? It was important back then, so all the more so now. So what can we do to enhance these communities? Because it's really interesting when you buy these communities, you actually are buying the community, and then your only job is how do you make the community better? Whereas everybody else is trying to say, I want to build a community, but here you actually have a community. So we started, working on a model, and we came up with brought on and was lucky enough to team up with some of the best people in kind of corporate housing, community development, and hospitality. And we really created a hybrid approach to how we operate our properties, where we're able to offer serviced apartments and conventional apartments. And with that, though, we also have tech tools and community that really brings it under one cohesive system. And we have a loyalty program. So people who come in, it's called Layers Unlimited. And so basically we have a whole loyalty program around that. So we launched the Layers brand and the Layers operating model. And interestingly, on the serviced apartment side, when we were first analyzing, and I brought in some people from the corporate housing world, and they told me, these are the premiums you could get if we ran our program, a serviced apartment program in your kind of Class B, garden style apartments. And when they told me the premiums, which are back then, it was 150 to 180% premium on rent. Now we're getting even more than that. But I didn't believe them. I was like, you guys are nuts. There's no way. And they were like, let me prove you wrong. And luckily I let them, and they proved me wrong. And so now we're, getting these premiums on our serviced apartment side. But the idea is, as a consumer, because our brand Layers is very consumer centric, is able to come into one of our properties, and they're able to say, I want either a serviced apartment, or I just want a conventional apartment. From an investment standpoint, it's great because we are able to get the premiums on the serviced apartments. And then we also have our, that's only a small portion relative to the entire property. So call it, 20%. And we're not doing, also, it's important to point out, we're not talking about short-term stays like some of the other platforms. We're talking about focused on longer term. I mean, we have, people who have stayed with us for years. We actually have a year now, because we launched in the midst of the pandemic last year, and we've been able to grow the service apartment offering, because we're really competing with extended stay hotels. And during the pandemic, people have preferred to stay with us because we offer a better price. And during a pandemic, we also offer, a nicer environment. All around, but definitely, when people are worried about cleanliness and not, being in a hotel.
Interesting. Can you, is there a specific like property or something where you could elaborate on just an example of how you've used that?
Yeah, sure. So the original one that we've launched on, we basically designated, it's 190 units. We designated, call it 10 units. And we said, we're going to turn these into our service apartment units. And we took those, and we were able to, within a matter of around 5 months, to get full occupancy on that with the service apartments. This is in Dallas. And so, we took that data, and we're implementing it on other properties. And now our investment thesis is we go into deals that make sense on a regular multifamily basis. But when we're able to, in the pun intended, layer on layers, it just increases our, returns that much more. And so from an investment standpoint, it makes it that much more interesting. And then I should just point out, so, we benefit as investors who invest with us benefit. And then we also have, since we've witnessed the success with this program, we launched a product called Layers Lite, and we're now serving other landlords so they can just plug and play layers into their building in order to benefit from, what we've built, which is, it's a lot more. It sounds very much like, oh, I'll just go in, I'll buy some, furniture on Craigslist or whatever. It's much more than that. We've created a whole streamlined system. We've created the marketing funnel to bring the business to the serviced apartments. And we've created a whole operational excellence around it. And then we have the benefit of the Layers brand and the technology, where we have a community app, and we have Layers Unlimited and so forth. So it's really a system that we've built.
That's incredible. I don't know. It's interesting. I just want to go ahead and ask you that. How do I learn more about this Layers program, in case an operator is listening that wants to think about utilizing that?
100%. So, the easiest in terms of Layers Lite, if there's an operator out there that's interested, they can reach out to Lucas, runs our Layers brand. You can email lucas@layerslife.com. And then another way is simply to go on to the HLCequity.com website, which is our parent investment company. If you enter the contact form, or you can reach out to the contact information there. We can direct it to the right address.
Awesome. Well, a couple of questions specifically about the current market situation and whatnot. I mean, as far as the pandemic, I get asked often, well, how's the pandemic affected your properties and those things, from investors nearly every day. What does that look like for you? And, was there anything that you all had done, say, before the pandemic that did help you to be prepared for something like that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think that a lot of going back to when the initial conversation of like, what can we do better? A lot of those conversations and our utilization of technology up front helped us through the pandemic. So we had already had like a community app, right? We already had the general tools to do virtual tours, even though we weren't, that wasn't our process. But it took us about, a couple days to shift over and to pivot to say now we offer virtual tours, whoever wants, come on board. Whereas like a lot of other groups that weren't kind of like paying attention to the technology trends may have taken them a little bit longer. So I think that those things helped us prepare. So, like we were used to doing community events at our properties is a big thing. Obviously, all of a sudden we weren't able to. We had all these events planned. So then it was like, okay, well, what do we do? And we were able to use our digital tools and our app and so forth to at least have some sort of engagement. And then the other thing is that it's really been great throughout the pandemic because we have a personal connection now with all of our customers, all of our residents on our properties. But then we also are able to get live feedback because, a lot of people, they tell you what they think, right? You think Google reviews are bad, wait until it's behind closed doors, right? So we're able to get good feedback and, you have to be picky in terms of, what you pay attention to because everybody has an opinion. But it's great to get live feedback. And there were like small things that we saw that were just great throughout the beginning of the pandemic, especially when everybody was scared, right? There was a period when we still don't know what the world's going to look like, but everybody's, people didn't know if people, how many people were going to be out of work and so forth. And we saw people start writing in, if anybody needs help, we're here, I'm employed, so I can help you, and all kinds of like great community building stuff that you just wouldn't see if you didn't kind of have those tech tools in place already.
Wow. No, that's incredible. I guess changing gears a little bit too, I was just thinking through too, like, multi-generational, you all been in business a long time. What's the next big change for you all? Anything else that you see coming up that's like, we're in the process of pivoting again because of what we've learned over the last 70 years?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. We have those, it's a hard balance, right? Because you see things in the market and then but you want to push forward what you're working on, and you don't want to get to, go all over the place. So every day I come up with things that I tell my operations team, like, hey, we should do this, we should do that. And they're like, that's a great idea. Keep on dreaming, because right now we're like focused on executing what we need to do. Right. But, I think that there's going to be a lot of different new niche opportunities that come out of this new reality that we're in. I mean, obviously, and we actually just we have a newsletter, which is called HLC Equity Insights, and everybody's welcome to join that. And through that, we put out some insights that we see live in the market. So a big thing that's happening right now is multifamily to hotel, or hotel to multifamily conversions, right? Which makes sense, right? People say, hey, that hotels are, that having a hard time, let's just switch them over to multifamily. It's a lot more complicated than that. We've looked at a lot of the deals. We put out, what are some areas for anybody that is thinking about investing in that field, which is potentially lucrative, but there's a lot of challenges that, people don't point out right away. So we put out a list of things that investors should be weary of when they're investing in that type of thing. But I do think that that's something that, at least people are going to be pushing for. They're going to see a lot of distress in the hotel sector. There's a lot of different funds that are being created to either, try and buy hotels cheaper, or else put debt on, to lend to these hotel owners. I think that's, it's an interesting trend. That's just one area. I think there's going to be a lot more, right? So like you have industrial, you have the e-commerce boom, but a lot of times, you have to ask obviously there's this dramatic shift to e-commerce, but is it as robust as it's been the last year, or is it just like, is it going to kind of plateau over the next several years? So those are the types of questions we're asking, with that sector. And I could go on sector by sector, because I think that there's going to be shifts in every sector, definitely.
Do you see you're all focused staying in multifamily, like long term now?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have like a mandate that we can't do other stuff. So, we bought a property that, in the midst of the, April May, when there was a lot of fear in the market, we bought a retail property because it could potentially have been repositioned and even be repositioned in the future to a multifamily development site, or it could stay a retail thing. So we're flexible in that kind of like we understand the different asset classes and we understand the value that's there. So we're not stuck on just doing multifamily, but definitely our main focus right now, just because we have all of this infrastructure that we've invested in, in our investment platform and also the Layers brand, we definitely have a whole side of our business that is focused in multifamily. Now, where is a different story, right? Where we had been focused in places like Dallas and Denver, which are getting very expensive. We still like those markets a lot. We think that there's a big story to be told for, the migration to these markets. We have some niche type of markets that we're looking at right now. And actually, some that we're potentially going to do a deal in that are kind of outside of the box.
Nice. Yep. Nice. Well, no, that's awesome. It's just neat to hear your all's outlook as well and what you think about multifamily, all those things. Pivoting just a little bit, any daily habits that you have that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
I mean, the ones that come to mind definitely have to be, because of my tradition, I'm Jewish and I just as a traditional type of thing that I do is in the morning, I pray every morning. And I definitely think that helps balance, especially, thankfully, I'm blessed with children. And so having, wild, loud house and then having just a moment to reflect is really important, before the work and the life day begins. That's really important. And the other thing is definitely, exercise, which is key for sure.
I can definitely relate to that. Getting up before everyone else's day gets started, right? Get yours started. No doubt about that. What about your all's best source for meeting new investors right now?
Sure. So we actually, and it's interesting. We didn't go over kind of like the capitalization of the company, but traditionally for a very long time, it was this traditional kind of like private family business. And, we might have done a partnership deal with another group that we were friends with or something like that. And over the last several years, as we shifted into multifamily, started doing larger deals, we also said, hey, let's take our track record, let's take our ability to invest and to take out deals, and also our great management team, and let's basically create an investment sponsorship platform where we'll invest, as a company, and then we'll bring in other investors as well. And so that's really what we've been doing ever since. And so we have an investor base. It's very important for us to have a broad investor base. We have everything from high net worth individuals, lawyers, doctors. We have wealth management groups that invest with us, and then we also have private equity groups that we invest with as well. So in terms of getting to know them, I mean, obviously the institutional investors that invest with us, it's a little bit different, of a relationship building process. And the high net worth individuals. So we recently launched HLC Direct, which is our direct investment platform where accredited investors can come right onto our platform. They can sign up and they can see our deal flow as it becomes available. And that's been great, just in terms of like somebody comes in, then we have a conversation, and we've been able to really foster good relationships that way.
Nice. No, that's incredible. What about the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
People. I say it a lot, and I know a lot of people say it, but like just the people that, that first of all, the people like throughout my life, when I think about the people who really cared. So not necessarily, I'm not saying like, oh, the most successful people or anything like that, but the people that like actually really cared. First of all, I think it's super important to always recognize that they got you to where you are. And then, just trying to surround yourself with the best people, both in terms of ethics and in terms of, striving in life. For me, that's been huge. Like my team, I think is just an extremely impressive team. And so, if there's one thing that I've done right, it's been able to get those people together and into like one room, so to speak. And that's it. But I think that's been like key, is just bringing in the right people.
And how do you like to give back?
Well, on a kind of the charitable social action side, something that's very important to us is poverty and just dealing with the the horrific poverty issues that are taking place today. So we, as a family on the side, like me personally and in my family, we're involved in a couple organizations behind the scenes where that actually play into real estate. So interestingly, it's important for us to be involved in something where we feel we can add value, but it has to do with housing, providing housing for people who are less fortunate and who are going through a hard time.
Nice. Well, I'm grateful for you sharing that and giving back in that way. I also wanted to ask you, you just said about bringing in good people. And I wanted to go back to that just for a second. And while we have just another minute, and any tips on bringing in good people? I've just did a series of shows on like hiring Class A talent and things like that, and how we've tried to do that. But I'd love any tips that you have in bringing in, team members that are Class A talent.
Yeah, 100%. So, I think, first of all, there's a book that I recommend. It's called Scaling Up. A lot of people have heard of it. It's a great book. And in there's, one of the fundamentals. Oh, you have it right there? There you go. Yeah. I don't see it, but I'm sure you have it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I do have it. Yes.
Right. So, it's a great book. And it's also, they've created the Scaling Up Network, which is a great network of people. So you got it there?
Yeah, the Vern.
There we go. Yeah, Vern Hunt. Right. Yeah. There you go. Right.
Yeah, so my business partner and I have gone through that. It's good.
Great. Yeah. So for me, like they have a whole section in there on people because they're one of their theses is that people is like one of the 4 fundamentals of creating a thriving business. Right. So I think that there are great tips in there, great pointers. From a personal standpoint, I think it's just being genuine. I think it's okay to be vulnerable and I just always, whenever I am interviewing a potential teammate, I always think whatever the position is, I always try and think, is this person better than me if I were to do that position? And, so that automatically I'm attracted to if somebody is, doing something better or has more skills than me, then I'm attracted to it. And then it's like, okay, well now it's just, I got to get them on board. I got to, whether it's selling them in a genuine way. And then, if you have a vision and you create a vision, so like our Layers team is great and dedicated because, we have a vision of what Layers can become. And same with the HLC Equity team in terms of, building out a larger portfolio to benefit investors and so forth. So I think it's really important to have that vision, be genuine about the vision. And then it kind of, you gotta let it flow down, to everybody that you're around.
No, that's wise words. Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to getting to know you even better, and just your willingness to share, multi-generational experience,
Sure.
from your all's business and how you protect against the downside, the Layers program, even how you all utilize tech, and how that helped prepare you for even the pandemic, and also bringing in good people as well, and how you've done that. So how can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Definitely. So with pleasure. So first of all, I'm on LinkedIn, Daniel N. Farber, and then you can just, search Daniel Farber, HLC Equity, or on our website. Again, if you go to HLCequity.com and you fill in the contact form, it will get forwarded to the right person, whether you're interested in investing. If you are interested in investing, you can go to the HLC Direct page there, and there's a direct form to sign up. But anybody else can reach out. It'll get directed, whether it's to Layers for investment, whatever it is, or just generally to talk, or, if there's any way we can help, we're always happy to try to help as well. So look forward to connecting.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.